Hello, welcome to the Lord Lucan case on YouTube. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the research that I have done over the years, and I've actually been involved, in case you haven't seen the other videos that I've uploaded on this channel. I've actually been involved in this case for the last almost 50 years. So that is, again, almost as long as what the when the whole case started. So we're going to talk about Namibia in this episode. Very interesting findings. Lord Lucan's son had been visiting Namibia, as had at least one of his two daughters. Before I go on, this is all rough footage. It's much easier for me to do it this way. I hope you'll bear with me. It's very interesting, I believe, and it would be great if you could watch right through to the end. I will refer to my laptop because there has been certain publicity given to George Bingham. So he is now the fourth Earl of Lucan, Lord Lucan's son. A lot of press speculation blew up about George's visit to Namibia, and that came about as a result of digging that I did, and we're going to take a look at it. It's quite interesting. So I'll refer to my book for various dates and for names, and forgive me, but I'll also refer to my laptop to try and give you some quotes that appeared in the Mail on Sunday in 2012, I think it was. We'll just check now. So, yeah, it was 2012. Namibia, first of all, as you may well be familiar, I approached George Bingham, Lord Lucan's son, as I say, some years ago, to see whether he'd be willing to meet with me and discuss the Lucan case and talk about his father. And George was very responsive. And we met up, and we met on numerous occasions after that, in different locations. So he always knew where I was coming from. There was no purpose in me wanting to meet George if he didn't understand that I was searching for answers as to what had become of his father and where he may have gone after the night of the murder, 7th of November 1974. So it was very clear to George, and you'd have to question why he would ever want to meet me, if he wasn't happy knowing that that was my sole objective, to progress the case, to find out where his father went to. And in fact, on one occasion, I remember we were in a restaurant, George and I were in a restaurant on Kensington High Street, and after a few drinks, he said to me that when you find him, you'll be the hero. So, interesting comment from George. But anyway, that's how it went that night. And I've never lacked that ambition to actually try and advance this case. Again, as I've said in previous videos here on the Lord Lucan case channel, police officers have come and gone. They've been appointed to the case, and they've been in situ for short periods of time. They've gained information. They've probably seen documents that haven't been put in the public domain. but there's never been anybody who's consistently been involved in this case as long as I have. Both the original detectives who first appeared on the scene at the murder scene at 46 Lower Belgrave Street in London on the night of Thursday, the 7th of November 1974. Both those police officers have long since died. And reporters come and go. They're not dedicated to it. They have their own commitments and under pressure from editors to meet deadlines and copy and all the rest of it for that particular day. So there's no long-term commitment. I do feel as though I've given this a lot of commitment. It's all been self-funded, apart from when we've had advances basically from the Daily Mail and also the Mail on Sunday. And those advances were made in order for me to further my investigations, specifically out in Namibia. So the conversation with Namibia first was touched upon, it was brought up by George. Again, I'm referring to my book here so that I can quote precise dates. It came up in conversation on the 8th of September 2004 at his flat in London. And then I asked George if he could recommend a good hotel. And he sent me an email dated the 12th of September 2004. And in it, he said, quote, I stayed at the Kalahari Sands, end quote. Now, the Kalahari Sands Hotel is a good quality hotel, and it's right in the centre of the capital of Namibia, Windhoek. So I was obviously determined to stay there and thought it would be an interesting place to start digging. Interestingly as well, there's also a very good casino on the ground floor of the hotel there. When I was there, I was able to discover phone records. The booking for George was confirmed. So we had telephone numbers that George had dialed from the hotel. I even saw drinks bills and things like that. And I tracked the destination of those phone calls that he had made. And again, there's a photograph of a house in an affluent suburb of Windhoek, the capital, which is where George had made several phone calls to. I'm sure there was nothing in it, but it was interesting. I was also, there was a lot of things to discover out in Namibia. Through the records held at the hotel, I was also able to establish that one of his sisters had also visited with an Australian friend, and they had gone off to a different part of Namibia. So all this, of course, was exciting stuff. Never before had a British police officer ever set foot anywhere in South Africa or Africa at all in connection with the Lord Lucan case. I was able to do that because I wasn't employed officially as any police officer. So it was all fascinating stuff as it all started to unfold, and certainly an element of excitement. When I came back to the UK, and forgive me, I'll just refer to the laptop, I was in contact with the Mail on Sunday, And when they discovered that I had found information about the Lucan children visiting Namibia, Ian Gallagher, who was the chief crime reporter for the Mail on Sunday in 2012, immediately came down to Cardiff and spent several hours with me, probably 3 hours. And we sat in a hotel just outside Cardiff Central Railway Station. A couple of cups of coffee and long conversations. And before I knew it, within a matter of 48 hours, Ian was flying out to Namibia to try and further investigate what was going on. And it was published in the Mail on Sunday on the 10th of March 2012. Some very interesting things that Ian Gallagher had written. And I had also discovered myself that although George had been booked in and told me in an email that he stayed at the Kalahari Sands Hotel, he never ever actually slept there. When questioned by the Mail on Sunday, his response was that he only ever went there to watch television. He had actually been staying at a remote guest farm, and there was a lot of interest in what George was actually doing at this guest farm. He would disappear on, go for long walks. And again, I'm reading now from what the Mail on Sunday wrote. So he would go off on these long walks, and apparently the windows in his room in this lodge were, what was the quote? I'll tell you now. The quote was that basically the windows were covered up, and this was because George apparently had an allergy to the sun. So Mrs. Trosbach, who was the owner of this guest house, told the Mail on Sunday, she said, quote, "I said to my husband, Namibia is a funny place to come to if you're allergic to the sun." Anyway, as I said, I'm sure there was nothing in this. George wasn't doing anything suspicious, but again, it was interesting. Let's just say that. And apparently workers at the lodge recalled that sometimes George would take off at night in his Land Rover, which apparently he had taken the trouble of shipping over from England, which is also interesting because the very first occasion that I met George at his rented country home in Northamptonshire, as I approached the house, there was this unusual Land Rover parked in the front garden, and I thought, oh my God, you see them in Africa, you wouldn't expect to see them in the front garden in Northamptonshire. So I thought that was very odd, and I thought perhaps it had been done the other way around. He had brought the Land Rover back from Africa, and that is where the Land Rover had originated from. Anyway, we don't know the whole story there, but it was certainly interesting. So anyway, Namibia is just one possibility as to where Lord Lucan could have spent time after disappearing, after the murder. I personally believe that he moved about between different African countries. Mozambique is one of those countries, and there was certain information to suggest that, which was discovered by a former MI5 officer, Chester Stern, where he came across a hotel register. So that's very interesting, and that's in in a future episode of the Lord Lucan case on YouTube. So look out for that. That's entitled Mozambique. And again, myself, I've been to Mozambique several times trying to investigate deeper and deeper as to whether he actually was there or not. There were lots of connections as well with all these African countries. So his friend at the time was John Aspinall, an animal conservationist. Used to breed animals, and they used to be released over in Africa. He had lots of contacts. He had contacts with royalty. So all the contacts were there, and Aspinall had the money to assist his gambling friend, Lucan. And Aspinall publicly stated if he wanted help, he would give him help. You know, he had no reservations about that. And don't forget Susan Maxwell Scott, who was very closely and even romantically, I believe, involved with Lucan, had previously stated, you know, if loyalty doesn't exist, then, you know, it's purely an acquaintanceship. So loyalty is the highest morality that you can hold in life. So all these people were there to help him and support him in a time of need. Family, if you want to call it that. Family who had money and contacts. There was as well, it should be noted with regard to Namibia and South Africa itself. South Africa during 1974 had withdrawn the extradition treaty with the UK. So there was no extradition treaty. So that was fantastic for a person who was trying to avoid interview with Scotland Yard. Also, at that time, 5 months after the murder of Mrs. Sandra Rivett, Hugh Bingham, so Lord Lucan's younger brother, had left the UK and set up home in a suburb in Johannesburg. And it's my belief that Hugh was positioned there to provide the necessary support for his older brother. And in fact, Hugh ended up living there till the end of his life. So it's all very, very interesting with Namibia. I'll put the links to the Mail on Sunday story, and it was also carried in the Daily Mail. I had very interesting discussions with the reporter and the Daily Mail in their offices off Kensington High Street, and they were very supportive financially to me, because up until this point in time, I had funded this investigation entirely myself. So it was great to have that support. And it enabled me to take numerous trips out to Mozambique and to Namibia. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this video. It will help my channel a lot if you'd care to subscribe to the channel. It helps with the analytics with Google. If you've got any questions, quite happy to try and address those questions. Just feel free to drop me a message. And we'll be back very soon with the next episode that concentrates on Mozambique. Thank you for watching.